How's it going, everybody? Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish, and if you could do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button now, and then you don't have to worry about it later. I'd really appreciate it. So today I want to throw at you some Euro spice, and to do that, in the vise I've got the Firehole 523. This is a size 14, and for the bead I've got the Spawn football bead in 5.5 millimeter black. And just so we can keep that bead exactly where we want it, I've got some non-lead 0.020, and I'm just going to make a few wire wraps, maybe 6 or 7, nothing crazy. If we need this fly to be heavier, it's pretty simple just to adjust the bead versus add a bunch of the weighted wire. And of course, for this application, this wire is mainly just to seat that bead and hold it in place, and we don't have to worry about it shifting and rolling on us. Alright, slide that in like so, making sure to keep the bulk of the mass on that bead on the underside so that this hook rides hook point up. Alright, so now we've got that in there and where we want it. Let's get some thread going. And for today's thread, I've got some Veevus 12-aught black, and really liking this stuff. It doesn't bulk up, super strong, pretty much all I need. Alright, so now I'm going to make some 45-degree angle wraps here to start, and make a couple passes that way, and then slowly I'll start adding some straight on wraps and pull all those little X's we just made in between each wrap of weighted wire, like so. I'm going to continue wrapping just a little bit here, especially right where that weighted wire ends, and the reason being I want a small little ramp effect here as I build this underbody, so that as I wrap this regular body it will have a nice taper to it, and I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, so first thing we're going to tie in is the rib, and for the rib today I'm using some Brassie sized copper ultra wire, and I'm going to place that right against the back of those weighted wire wraps, and then keeping this on the bottom of the hook shank, since we're going to be tying this hook point up. I'm going to wrap that all the way down to where it just starts to bend there a little bit and come back up. And for this body, I'm doing a flash body here, and I'm using some Saltwater Flashabou, and this is copper. So you can see we're going to have copper body with copper rib, and it is a pretty nasty little combo. So I'm just going to tie this in up here at the front, and then I'm going to droop it over the eye of the hook, and then I'm going to come in with just a small amount of super glue gel, and once that's on I'll just kind of spread it out. So what this glue is going to do as we wrap this back in overlapping wraps is it's going to just kind of smooth out the glue, spread it out, and really make for a strong body on this flash. And all we need to do now is get all the way back to that wire, and like so. Looks pretty good right there. All we want to ensure is that we don't see any of those thread wraps that we placed earlier, and then we can start working our way back to the eye of the hook. And again, just maintaining overlapping wraps like this. We're going to ensure we have full coverage underneath that rib, because we do want this fly to sparkle. Alright, and just tie this off, a couple solid wraps, and then we can flip it over on itself and continue tying down like so. Now when we cut this out, none of that's going to move on us. Like, ta-da! Let's see how our body looks. It's bright. That's what we're going for. So now on this, I'm going to counter wrap this wire. So instead of going the same way, I'm going to reverse the direction of wrap, and we're looking for nice evenly spaced wraps here on this wire. Take your time. If they're not perfect, you can undo it, or you can simply leave it and let the fish decide if it was good enough, and chances are it usually is. Now we're up behind the bead. Go ahead and tie that wire off. Give it 3 or 4 good wraps behind, pull it back slightly, get that thread in front, and we can safely now cut out our wire. I'm just going to use my thumb and push that cut edge down, and then secure with a couple thread wraps like this. Boom. Alright, so you can see at this point you could fish this fly almost just like this and have success. And what's it going to fish for? Well, pretty much anything that's hatching, be it mayfly to caddis, even a big midge. But what's important here is that in the fall especially, your water tends to have some tannic tones in it from rotting leaves and different debris, and so it's quite natural to find bugs that are going to have more of a coppery color, and that's why we are going with the coppery color. Alright, so now for a little bit of a thorax that is going to pop just slightly. I've got some ostrich herl here, and this is from Hairline, and this is the Spawn Southern Fluorescent Peach Ostrich, and I've got 2 herls, and I'm going to tie these in somewhere near the tip. Let's say roughly 1.5 inches away from the tips, and then wrap back and make sure that this thorax covers any of the thread wraps that we laid down previously when we were tying off those other materials. Once you're tied in, go ahead and trim those tips out of there, and if you have some excess fibers, let's not get too crazy about it. And now for our collar, I'm going to go ahead and tie this in now. We have the Rusty Spinner CDC from Nature Spirit, and if you look at the tip here, I've trimmed off those fibers, left a little bit so that the thread has something to grab onto. And I'm going to turn this fly over just to avoid the hook point, and I'm going to tie it in like so that I have the concave side facing upward, which means I'm tying the convex side to the hook shank. And the reason I'm doing this is so that as I wrap it, the good fibers will face forward and the fish will say thank you. Alright, so now all that's left is to gather our ostrich, and much like any other herl, I'm going to spin these slightly together, make one herl a little stronger and a little bushier when we wrap, and then I'll simply wrap and get these CDC fibers out of the way so I don't trap any of those, and just keep progressing forward. Oh, see that? Caught one CDC fiber, and we will need all of them. Alright, so now I'm right behind the bead. Go ahead and tie this ostrich herl off. Get a few good wraps in there. Pull up slightly as you're pulling down with your thread. Make sure it's seated. And now we can safely trim that out. Just keep in mind, you do have that CDC feather in there. Don't cut it out. Alright, now we're ready for this. And let's get it wrapped. So we're just going to get all these fibers facing the back before we continue the wrap. And once you've got those facing the back, that's it. That's all you need. So after our second wrap, I'm going to call that good and tie this CDC off. Try not to trap too many fibers there, and of course, like always, pull that feather back, get a couple wraps in front, and we can safely remove that CDC butt. At this point, I just want to make sure I don't have any goofy trapped fibers. Run the bodkin through there. If you have some that are too long, just go ahead and bink, fixed. Any that are facing the wrong direction, pull them out, or brush it back, and then continue wrapping your thread neck. And if you do that, it'll catch those little guys and push them back for you. Alright, do some whip finishing. There's our first whip finish, and let's add one more because this thing is going to get chewed on quite a bit. And you could also resin the body if you wanted to add just a little bit more strength, but we did put that super glue down, so that should hold it together really well for us. Alright, now just need a little bit of head cement, and for that I am using the Loon Hard Head Clear, and we're just using the back curvature of that bead to rest our bodkin on slightly, and then we don't get a lot of cement in our CDC fibers, which is pretty important. And there we have it. So there is the Euro Spice, and it's a great little jig style nymph, great for fall time fishing when the water's getting some of those tannic tones, and fish absolutely smash this fly. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit like and subscribe. Leave any comments below and we will get to them. And I really appreciate your time. Thanks for watching, and we will see you on the water.